Alrighty, so both of the CONCACAF Champions Cup first round leg 2 action is in the books tonight. And while yesterday we saw some instant classic in the first round of leg 2 of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, tonight was the complete opposite. I mean, these two games were not close whatsoever, and that I would say that this is probably the most dominant night I've seen an MLS team face against their CONCACAF Champions Cup in a very long time. Now, to be fair, they were facing two teams that is in the Caribbean region, and you kind of expected the fact that is the case, but yet still, I mean, just total domination today by both FC Cincinnati and Nashville against their opposition tonight. And we start off with this one between FC Cincinnati versus Cavalier. Almost said Calvary there because again, it's always confusing the fact that there's a team that's also called Calvary, and the one that Cincinnati is facing is the one that is Cavalier. The Calvary one is the Orlando City one, and yeah, I mean it kind of started straight away in terms of this dominant performance by Cincinnati with Bartlett denied Bupensa from close range. By the way, Bartlett, if he was not in goal in this would have been easily 8 or 9-0 in favor of Cincinnati, and I'm not exaggerating. I mean, he was pretty much holding down the fort as much as possible to a point where unfortunately, his defense was pretty much non-existent in this one. And after a spectacular performance that Cavalier put against Cincinnati in the first leg, especially a very defensive, organized team in the first leg, really frustrates Cincinnati throughout the game. They were nowhere to be shown in this game against Cincinnati at TKO Stadium. And again, just like the last game, Cincinnati was on the front foot with all the possession. The shots were only 1-0 through 13 minutes. That was about to change. I mean, this is when Cincinnati started to pour it on. Valenzuela would hit it wide from long range before Wobodo would have a shot that was blocked away. And in the 19th minute, Cincinnati takes the lead. It's Alvis Powell. He scores from Hazley to make it 1-0 in favor of Cincinnati. Brett Hazley had a big game in this one. And they also had to take a very long look by VAR to see if there was an offside there. And I got to say, it was very, very close. I mean, so close that I guess they had to spend 4 minutes to look at it. But eventually the goal was given and Cincinnati were leading 1-0. Bupensa looked to try to get Cincinnati the second, but he hits it right to Bartlett. Cincinnati was doing a good job with its press and not really allowing Cavalier to get out of their own half. Valenzuela then hits one right to Bartlett before Murphy had a free header, but he hits it weakly to Bartlett. Then Bupensa hits one wide off the deflection before he also hits one right to Bartlett. And at this point, the shots were 9-0 in favor of Cincinnati. I mean, it was pretty much one-way traffic in this game, and to no one's surprise, eventually Cincinnati get that second goal, and also to no one's surprise, if you give Bupensa so many opportunity, he's gonna eventually bury one, and he finally did in the 34th minute as he scored here from Valenzuela to make it 2-0 in favor of Cincinnati. Valenzuela, another kid that had a really good game in this one. But let's also not forget that was an absolute screamer from distance too. I mean, of all the chances that Bupensa missed in this one, it's hard to believe the one that he scored was an absolute screamer from about 20 yards out. But he'll definitely take it, and certainly Cincinnati will take it. They were up 2-0 in this game and 4-0 in terms of the aggregate score. And I thought that this could be a rout because it's pretty clear that Cavalier is pretty much just going to show up in this game, and that's all they're going to do. Uh, well, at least except for the goalkeeper who was still trying to stand on his head because he would deny Bupensa again from close range before Bupensa would put one right to Bartlett in the 41st minute, and then Bartlett denying Wobodo from close range. And again, this could be 5-0 in favor of Cincinnati if it wasn't for Bartlett performance. They mentioned the fact that he, of course, is nicknamed the Wall in his native country, and I can believe that too because man, he was standing on his head, and who knows, maybe Jamaica just have found their next goalkeeper in line of Andre Blake because with Blake starting to getting up to the age, maybe Barclay could be a guy to do so. And I also won't be surprised if there's any MLS team is looking to try to get him because one thing about this competition is that for these smaller teams, they want to perform at their best even if they know that they have no chance to move on because you never know, there's going to be some teams that are definitely showing their interest, and I will not be surprised if any MLS team that needs goalkeeping help and maybe looking at this Bartlett guy because he was definitely holding it down in terms of between the stick as much as possible. And then Bupenza would heads it high from close in the 42nd minute. I mean, Bupenza, what he had like 8, 9 chances in this one. It's hard to believe he only score one in this game, but nevertheless, we head to halftime with Cincinnati leading 2-0 in the second half. This is when Pat Nolan decided that, yeah, we're going to start to put some of our young guys in and pretty much put an FC Cincinnati 2 team. And it makes sense because, the tie is already over and, most of the starters was being subbed off. Though I say that, and then as the games goes on, they also decided to sub in Lucho Costa in here, which again, that's kind of interesting. The fact that you decided to sub in your reign MVP into this game that has nothing to play for, but I guess maybe just kind of for fitness reason, because again, up to this point, it was pretty much like a training session for Cincinnati. In the 52nd minute, Ordonez would heads it high from close range before Hazley would hit the side netting in the near post. And an hour into this game, Cavaliers still have yet to register a shot. Well, they finally did in the 62nd minute. They must have seen me wrote that because their first shot came when Thomas hits one right to Sayotano. Jimenez then had a shot that was deflected and goes wide. Before in the 66th minute, a penalty was given to Cincinnati as VAR deemed that Maine brought down Ordonez in the box. So Ordonez, of course, draw the penalty. He was the one to take it, and unfortunately, he missed it. It was actually a great save there from Bartlett. Well, it was a great save from Bartlett, but also just not a good penalty from Ordonez. And speaking of penalties, again, this is kind of crazy to see that we have only for so far this season, and that's including the CONCACAF Champions Cup. We have only seen one player able to convert from the spot so far this season. If you go back to the opening weekend, I mean, in the opening weekend, literally Pedro de la Vega was the only one that scored the penalty, and there was a 4 penalty kick attempt. I mean, something is going on with MLS team in terms of taking penalties because yeah, it hasn't been great so far this season. Though that being said, like I said, Ordonez is not usually the penalty kick taker. I understand that he wants to score a goal to pretty much put had some stats, but yeah, that was not a great penalty. And again, when you are facing a guy that is nicknamed the Wall, you better make sure you put a perfect penalty. And again, Ordonez didn't do it there. Speaking of the Wall, Barclay would then deny Ordonez in the box, but then the 76th minute, false would score from Hazley to make it 3-0 in favor of Cincinnati. So Isaiah Foster, another up and coming kid from this Cincinnati team, and you should I think they mentioned that he and alongside with Hazley also play in with FC Cincinnati too. But yeah, that also was his first career goal for Cincinnati. And speaking of first career goal for Cincinnati, that goes the same for Dado Valenzuela as he scored here from Acosta to make it 4-0 in favor of Cincinnati. Again, there really was no need to put Lucho Acosta in this game other than the fact that maybe he wanted to do some of his magic to try to show why he is the reign MVP, and he did the same thing here. Though all credit has to go to Valenzuela too because that was a wonderful finish there to make it 4-0. But Lucho was just doing Lucho thing. He pretty much put it on a play on a perfect position to make it 4-0 in favor of Cincinnati. And this is also when I kind of stopped writing notes because I ran out of space and this game was already out of hand. So yeah, 4-0 was the final scoreline, 6-0 overall in the aggregate scores, and the shots in this one, 27 shots compared to just 2 that Cavalier has, 14 shots on goal compared to 2 that Cavalier has. So despite the fact that Bartlett gave up 4 goals in this one, he made 11 save in this one. Again, don't be surprised if an MLS team might be looking to try to get him because of how good he performed in this one. 7 shots off target for the none that Cavalier has. No shots that was blocked compared to 6 that Cincinnati has. And possession-wise, Cincinnati had 60% possession compared to 40% possession that Cavalier has. And yeah, for Cincinnati, they took care of business, but it's going to get a little tougher for them in the second round because in the second round, they're going to be facing against Rayados, and that should be a very interesting showdown. I mean, I said Orlando City against Tigres is a very interesting showdown. I would argue Cincinnati and Rayados could be easily a good showdown too, because if there's one thing about MLS team when they face against Liga MX team, especially those two Monterrey team, we'll see whether this is going to be a time where we can see these MLS teams maybe slay some demons and slay some of that past narrative that for whatever reason those two Monterey team when they're in this competition, you know that they're going to do damage and they're going to be giant killer to these MLS teams that we've seen in the past. Now moving on, in the next match is Nashville and Moca, and this game pretty much is a carbon copy of this one. And the scoreline is the same thing too, is a 4-0 victory for Nashville. And it's unfortunate that no one really kind of attended this game. I mean, I can understand that it is the case because it's an 8:15 p.m. kickoff on Wednesday. Nashville games usually doesn't draw very well in the middle of the week. But yeah, even with the upper deck closed, I mean, it was pretty much empty. I mean, they did posted the attendance, which I'll talk about in just a bit, but even with the when they announced the attendance, I doubt that that's actually attendance. It felt like almost half of the people actually was there compared to the actual attendance that was announced. But that being said, as I said, despite the fact it was cold and it was a late game, all those Nashville fans uh, missed out on seeing their team in person in terms of scoring goals because scoring goals at Geodis Park has been a bit of a challenge for Nashville, at least going back to last season. Not in this game though, because in the 13th minute, Mackenzie Gaines would score his first goal for Nashville and what seems like his first goal in a long time too, because I don't think he scored with Charlotte when he was doing his time with Charlotte FC, and I might have to go back to when he scored for Austin when he break into the scene just as a homegrown just a couple of years ago. But he scored here from Onunga to make it 1-0 in favor of Nashville. And then after that, Nashville continued to dominate possession. They were looking for their second goal. The shots were only 3-0 through 30 minutes into this game. Osguna then hits one right to Panico before uh, Lewin would also hits one right to Panico, and you're thinking, maybe Moca can get into this game because they're starting to ask Nashville defensive question on the transition. Turns out that was not the case because those two shots that I mentioned turns out to be the only shots that Moca would get throughout this whole game. But after that, Ayako would then puts it into the side netting. But then just 1 minute later, he would score as he scored here from Schaffelberg to make it 2-0 in favor of Nashville. This was a monster night for four-star Ayako making his debut for Nashville. And I know it's just against Mocha, but this could be a guy that could be used for good depth for this Nashville SC team, and that's got to be good news because that number 9 position has always been a problem. But not only the fact that they maybe could have that answer with Mocha, and I also won't be surprised if Ayako might get a chance this weekend. Consider there's still question about Sam Surridge. How I think from what I heard, it seems like he could be ready for this weekend. But why not give Ayako another chance, especially the fact that he's red hot and was everywhere in this game. But in the 41st minute, the post would deny Mackenzie Gaines of his second goal and Nashville's third before Ramirez denied Ayako of his second goal. And you can clearly see Nashville was smelling blood. They were pressing to try to get that third goal, and they do get it. As in the 45th minute, Jacob Schaffelberg would score here to make it 3-0 in favor of Nashville. It took a wicket deflection and goes in. I mean, that's kind of how it goes when everything is going your way in this game, as it is the case for Nashville SC. But we do head to halftime with the score 3-0 in the second half. Pretty much more of the same. I mean, Nashville continued to dominate in this one, and in the 53rd minute, Ayako would score his second goal of the game to make it 4-0 in favor of Nashville. Mule did try to make it number 5, but he puts it wide from close range, and in the post, denied Ayako of his hat trick. He had a chance to score a hat trick a couple of times in this game as well. They then announced the attendance. 6,089 showed up for this one, which must be one of the lowest attended game at Geodis Park history. Probably even lower than when we saw those U.S. Open Cup games that they had because, yeah, there was pretty much no one in the stands in this one. And as I said, even though they announced it 6,089, it feel like at best there was about 3,000 fans showed up for this game. And again, I don't blame him because it is cold in Nashville. You know that people don't go out when it's cold and it's in like 30 degrees in Tennessee, and also the late kickoff doesn't help. And also when you're basically facing against a team that you already are going to move on into the next round, yeah, the attendance is going to be probably really bad in this one. And then in the 78th minute, this is when I had to start to put the first letter after Gaines' name because his brother, Julian Gaines, came into this game and he almost followed his brother footstep by scoring, but he just missed wide as he was trying to toe poke it in, and then he puts one right to Ramirez in the 80th minute. But then in the 81st minute, his brother would win a penalty as Jimenez with have a clumsy challenge there. Chop Gaines down in the box in the 81st minute. And here comes Ayako, a chance to score from the spot. But like I said before, something is going on with MLS team missing penalties because guess what? Ayako would miss this one. And again, it was not a great penalty whatsoever. Ramirez did guess it the right way, but just not a confident penalty whatsoever. And I even wrote, what is going on with MLS team missing thing from the spot. That's now 5 out of the last 6 penalties that I've seen going back to opening days that we've seen an MLS player miss a penalty, and the only penalty that I've seen in the last 6 PKs from these 2 games, and then the opening weekend of the MLS action is Pedro de la Vega scoring that. So, yeah, something's going on with teams finishing from the spot, or maybe it's just because you're putting young guys from the spots that usually they're not the one that takes the penalty, and maybe that's why they miss. But we'll see if that can change heading into match week number 2 of the fact that it seems like the penalty spot is being cursed this season, where nobody is able to put in and slot home a penalty. I mean, I get taking a penalty is not easy, but still, some of these penalties I've seen are just terrible penalties that if the keeper just even guessed it the right way, he'll easily saved it. But nevertheless, even with the penalty kick miss, Nashville still able to walk away with an easy 4-0 victory. And the shots in this one, 21 shots compared to 2 that Moca has, 2 shots on goal compared to 11 that Nashville has, no shots off target, or no shots off target for the 7 that Nashville has, no shots on blocked for the 2 that Nashville has, and possession wise, 62% possession compared to 38% possession that Mocha has. And if you also count the shots, basically between both of these games, MLS opponent outshot their CONCACAF opposition by a shot of 46-4. I mean, just think about it, 46-4. And in terms of shots on goal, too, 25-4 in terms of shots on goal. That is just insane of how dominant that MLS team are tonight. And I get it. Yes, it's against Caribbean teams, but still, that's something that I think I haven't seen in a while, that MLS team is this dominant against their opposition. But as we know, it's not going to be easy for both of these teams too, because while I said Cincinnati have to play against Riot those in the next round, well, Nashville now have to have their revenge game against Inter Miami in the next round, and you know that once again, just like what we said in the Leeds Cup final, Nashville was gonna have to face an upper battle against the team that I'm pretty sure everybody in the CONCACAF region or behind the scenes, and even the people that runs CONCACAF are hoping that Inter Miami will win it all, because that's kind of how that's kind of something thing that not only get Messi of winning another trophy, but also him going into the Club World Cup next year. And again, I think the other thing is that in this CONCACAF Champions Cup, who's another man that really or another person that really wants Inter Miami to win it all? It's probably Infantino wants to see them win it all, so that way they can see Messi in the Club World Cup next year, because that would be great marketing reason for the Club World Cup that's going to be happening in the U.S. next year. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at these 2 games in the CONCACAF Champions Cup involving MLS team. Tomorrow we got one more game, and that is between New England and Independiente. And I expect that one probably would be a little bit closer, because the refs haven't really looked that impressive, especially in their game against DC United. But who knows? We'll see whether that's going to be more competitive. And I will also just say that after seeing how some of these teams have easily dominated their CONCACAF Champions Cup opponent, it doesn't mean that this is going to be the year where an MLS team is going to win it all and join the Seattle Sounders as the only MLS team to win this competition, because we haven't got to the stage where when we get to the second round, the round of 16, or even the quarterfinal, when these MLS team face against their Liga MX rival, this is where it could be a good telling point of we'll see whether if some of these teams will go deep. And I also would know that at least we're gonna have one team that's gonna be make it to the quarterfinal because we know that there's gonna be an all MLS matchup between Nashville and Inter Miami, and that should also be a very interesting matchup, and maybe probably the best matchup that we have in terms of an all MLS matchup in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, probably since when we saw the rematch of MLS Cup last year between LAFC and the Philadelphia Union in the semifinal. But like I said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.